Welcome to another episode of the Preparing for Pregnancy After Loss podcast. And today I have the pleasure of sitting with Tia DeShazor. You'll get to know a bit more about Tia in just a few minutes, but I'll start with her bio. Tia works in the performing arts as an actor, writer of musicals, and career coach for artists. She's also the co-founder of Bold, an organization for Black women in the performing arts. She's originally from Detroit and currently lives in Harlem with her husband, C.K. Edwards, and baby, Lexington. Welcome, Tia.
Hi, I'm excited to be here.
Yes, I'm so honored to have you. So today's episode is going to be about you sharing your birth story. And a
Yay!
part of that is advocacy and standing up for yourself and seeking other options. So really
Yes.
excited to have you share.
Yes, I'm excited to share.
So let's start with how we connected. I remember that you were seeking doula services, and I was one of the doulas that you interviewed. So
Yeah.
tell us first why you were seeking doula services. Like, why was having a doula important to you?
Well, I think I always wanted someone to be there and support me in the process of giving birth. But it wasn't until I got pregnant and didn't really have a lot of information and that I was advised to get a doula because I kept asking questions. And the person that advised me is the founder of an organization called Radical Health, Rad Health. And she was like, get a doula. she has a great, you can actually text Rad Health any questions about health, women's health, and they'll respond to you. So I had been texting with the app or the program and about just how am I supposed to decide where to have my baby? Like what hospital? Like, do I have to have if I get an epidural? Just all these questions about the birthing process. And I had spoken to the founder, Ivalise and Dino as well. And she was like, let's get you a doula. And she actually recommended, what is the program that you're a part of, that
Bronx Rebirth.
Bronx Rebirth,
Yeah.
to find a doula with. So it was just really, I was like, okay, yes, I'll do that. I'll go this route. And just such a great experience. Each doula that I spoke with three. After I got off the phone with each of them, I was like, that's the one. Obviously you can't choose all three of them. They were all amazing. So yes, that's how we met.
Yeah. And I remember you following up and saying, oh my gosh, you're all so awesome. I don't know who to choose. And I said, follow your heart.
You did.
Yeah. That's the right person for you.
Yeah. And I ended up going with Jasmine because I knew that I did not want my mother to be in the room. But I knew that I wanted someone motherly in the room. And because, and I only mean that someone who's a little older.
Yeah.
And there's also I think of a commandingness that Jazz has, that
she does have that presence.
And so, and I'll probably share more about how that influenced me with my decision later, but it was kind of what I needed without having my mom there, because I do love my mom, and she's not nurturing, and she knows this. We talked about it. She knows, she just makes me more intense and more anxious when I tell her that I'm struggling with something or something's intense. She's like, yes, I agree. Instead of being let's so I decided that was the route to go, because I needed a little bit Jasmine
Yeah. So you and I worked on coaching and
We
emotional
did.
healing. Yeah. So,
Because I was like, well, I still want to work with you somehow. Like, you're such a wonderful presence. I was like, I have to have her in my life somehow. So yes, when we had our consultation, you spoke about somatic healing, and that really spoke to me and where I was during that season of, being pregnant.
yeah, yeah. And I'm so honored to have been on your birthing team because I talk a lot about the birthing team. Like, what are your needs? Like, how can you
Yeah.
get the people that you need to make this experience what you want it to be?
Yeah. I
Yeah.
definitely didn't realize. So I'm so glad that you mentioned it and,
Mm-hmm.
offered it, because I didn't realize that there was another missing piece that I could have benefited from in the emotional healing that needed to happen. And I think with being pregnant for the first time, apart from family and the family trauma, things that I had gone through,
Mm-hmm.
and COVID, and, starting a business of my own during COVID and being pregnant, and my industry being essentially shut down. Um, there was a lot to deal with, and
Yeah.
that I was holding on to. And so I was like, yes.
Amazing. So I am remembering that a part of your journey was actually being in the conventional hospital system and having to have a detour from that. So tell us about that experience.
Yeah, where to begin with that one? I think that in my head, in the back of my head, like years ago, I think the first year that I got married, and we've been married for 11 years, I had watched The Business of Being Born. And so that was in the back of my head. But when I got pregnant 10 years later, I was like, I don't know if that's my path. I think I'm
Mhm.
just gonna, we're in a pandemic. I don't, whatever reasoning was, I just was like, I think I'm going to take the easiest route, which it
Mhm.
seemed to be the easiest at the time.
Yeah.
Just,
Meaning the hospital.
yeah,
Yeah.
conventional. Let's not try anything that that is, counterculture. You always do the most in that area anyway. So let's just keep it what I thought was simple, which, um, and so I started off, with my gynecology appointments, and they tried to recommend, different places, different obstetricians,
Mhm.
and they wouldn't take my insurance a lot of
Mhm.
times. And so finally, um, I was recommended to go to Mount Sinai.
Mhm.
And I think I started off like very optimistic there. And I qualified for, because of my insurance, and at the time I was on Medicaid, to go to their clinic, which I guess I did not understand. That
Mhm.
this was like going to be a situation where it's different than the people who went to the different part of Mount Sinai and
Mm.
recommended it highly. Um, a different situation.
Interesting.
Yeah. And so this meant that it was in the basement of the hospital, um, very dark, and it's also a teaching hospital, just things that I didn't really know that I was getting into when I was like,
Mhm.
Mount Sinai, that person had a great experience, that person had a great experience. This is a different experience if you have Medicaid,
Oh
which
my
is
gosh.
ridiculous.
Yeah.
So here I am at this clinic, and it's very like, I don't know the other, this is a like a audition term, but like very much like a cattle call,
Mm.
where like you're just a number, and you don't know, and this is, I think, true in many situations, but you don't know who you're going to be seeing at your appointments.
Mm.
From one to another, you could be seeing a different physician. And the first day that I went, it was a student, a first year resident, and it was just, he was very nice at, to meet and talk to. He was a very nice person until he had to do an exam. At that time, I
Oh
had to
my
have,
gosh.
yeah. They talked, I realize now that I did not have to, but at the time I had to have, I thought that I had to have a pap smear. And so
Mm.
I ended up having this very painful pap smear with this person. who just like all the warmth that he was giving me when we first started talking just like went away when he was like, inside of my body with,
Mm-hmm.
and I was like, whoa, this is not like, I could tell he was nervous. He had a person with like watching him. And it was just a very uncomfortable experience for that to be my first experience there. There's also like so much blood that you take, your urine sample, they make you like take it to a place. Like there's this way that they handle you where it's like you're in, like you have to do this. You show up and you go here, you take your urine sample, put it here. You do this. So it was very like, and then there's all these signs, put your urine sample. I'm like, why can't I just have like someone else take care of my urine sample for me? Like it's and I imagine that's not what was happening upstairs.
Right.
Someone's so but the way that they explain everything is very like, this is how we are with the women down here in our teaching process. So that was my first experience, and I'm a very optimistic person. So I was like, okay, you know what? And this is naive. I figured this out, but I was like, you know what? I'm just going to be as friendly as possible. I will make friends with them and I will get the attention that I need.
Mm-hmm.
And, because I'm very charming and I can, like that did not happen. It wasn't the case at all. My second experience was I requested a midwife. I thought that person would be warmer. Mm-hmm. That was not the case. Mm. She often like laughed off my concerns. And then my third appointment was virtual. Mm-hmm. And I had started to experience some pain, like with round ligament pain, that was probably the biggest issue during my pregnancy, was when mm-hmm. I started experiencing that. And because I'm someone who uses my body in my work, I don't let anything just like sit, like if there's pain, I want to address it. And I know that pregnancy, there's going to be aches and pains, but this felt like something that like was not normal, because my friends who were pregnant could walk and I was having a lot of trouble walking. And so I asked for physical therapy, and I got a lot of pushback. This third midwife that I saw, she said, well, I don't know you, so I don't want to, during our virtual appointment, she said, I had never seen you, so I don't want to refer you to physical therapy without seeing you. And this was the middle of COVID. It's the middle of winter. And I'm just like, just give me a referral for physical therapy. I'm telling you that I'm not asking for drugs. Like I'm in pain. I just want to address it and make sure it's not abnormal. And I was really turned off by that pushback. There were a couple other instances that happened that I was like, this is not right. You're not listening to me. And so I realized that if I'm in this amount of pain now and they're not listening to me, when I get to the point where I'm laboring and giving birth, they're not going to listen to me, So I don't want to be in a very vulnerable position and not have someone listen. And then also, I don't know who's going to be there. I've already met 3 different physicians and I can't trust that. So that was sort of my breaking point of like, okay, well, I'm going to seek other options. And thankfully, my husband had been saying, we can do it here, we can do it at home. And I kept being like, what are you talking about? I don't think we have the space. I don't think we have any, I don't know about that route. But he kept saying that. And we looked at birthing centers as well. And then it did make sense in the end to look into having a midwife come and birth at home. So, and of course, you so wonderfully referred me to Nubia, the midwife that we ended up using.
Nuba's amazing, just amazing. So yes, that was your path to deciding to get a midwife. And I do remember CK, like we had one initial meeting where CK was present and he was like, yeah, we can do it here. Like we can set it up there. Like it can hold there.
I was like
he
looking at it like,
yeah.
what are you talking about?
Yeah. So what was your experience like working with Nubia from the first time you either spoke to her or met her? What was that like for you?
Um, Completely different.
Mm,
I felt like there was an equal amount of warmth and competence.
mm,
And immediately, like I was just getting information from her, but
mhm,
also like a very different vibe than what I was getting in the hospital. Um, I was getting more information, you know, questions that I didn't even think to ask were being answered because
mhm,
she's such a wealth of information. You can ask her one question and she's like, she'll tell you all about it and she'll also send you a PDF, you know.
mm,
um, and it's also like information that's you can understand. And
yeah.
then also there's a warmth. There's a like yeah, that's the best way I can explain it, that she is approachable and warm and
Mhm,
friendly, but also competent and very knowledgeable. So
mhm,
it was a difficult decision because she didn't our insurance did not cover her.
mm,
And we met with another midwife that we would have coverage for, and we decided not to go with her because I just felt that there was something about Nubia, and I was like, we're going to make this work, you know,
mhm,
in this pandemic, whatever we have to do, we're going to go with Nubia.
mhm.
So working with her was immediately different. We had to go out to Yonkers where uh, um, her birthing place is. I don't remember what exactly she refers to it as, but it was a great time. We would go and he was able to come with me. That was another thing in the hospital, like they wouldn't let me FaceTime him for
Oh,
the
wow.
ultrasounds, and I would be crying because just like I'm alone. And
Yeah.
all of a sudden I'm able to be welcomed into her like very beautiful, colorful space.
Mm,
And my husband is with me and I'm able to ask the questions that I need. And it's just
mhm.
a completely different environment. And in a in a position where you're so vulnerable in pregnancy, your first pregnancy, it's just what I needed.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Beautiful. That almost brought me to tears. Just thinking of the contrast. Like in the basement, you didn't say cold, but it just feels like it's cold.
Oh yeah. And you know, another thing, because it was COVID, you know, the idea of sitting in a waiting room, you know, with other pregnant women, I, you know, at first was kind of excited about, but we're 6 feet apart. We're like, the chairs are all facing different directions because of COVID. And like everyone's masked and looking straight ahead. No one's talking. Like I just imagine that we'd be like, you're pregnant too. Let's, you know, let's chat about it. That wasn't the environment. And
Mhm.
so working with Nubia, we did have one birthing class where she brought in another um, family that was due around the same time as us, and it was a
Mhm.
completely different experience. I mean, we were still safe, we were still taking the precautions that come with a pandemic,
Yeah.
but you know, it was a more welcoming environment, a more communal environment.
Yeah, yeah. And I remember us having a conversation about preparation for childbirth, and what you shared was that you were always learning so much along the way. Like each interaction, each appointment, you were learning so much about your body and the pregnancy
Yeah.
that, you know, by the time you had the childbirth ed class, it was sort of like the bonus or the supplemental, the additional info, because each interaction there was like a wealth of information being shared with you.
Yeah, definitely. When
Yeah.
we had our class, it just went deeper about like breastfeeding, and I hadn't even thought about that yet. Um, and yeah, and then you know what to do when the baby gets there, and
Mm,
it was very in depth, but also very like, you know, digestible.
Yeah. Beautiful. So tell me about your experience working with Jasmine, your doula.
So great. And it's so funny because I would forget to even like reach out to her. She'd be reaching out to me when I'm making these decisions. Like I would forget that I have support. And I think that's just a me thing where I forget in life a lot that I have support and that I can ask for help, even help that is like signed on to help me. So like she would check in with me and be like, hello, like, how are you doing? What have you done? And so then she would help me make a decision. So I did leave out that she definitely had such a big part in making me feel like I was safe enough to give birth at home. She knew that I was frightened or had some, some things holding me back.
Yeah.
But she was always like very matter of fact in the way she's like, so it sounds like you want a home birth. It does. But not pushy, but like also like, I'm repeating back to you what you're saying.
Yeah.
But she was always like very affirming that like whatever kind of birth you choose, you're going to have a beautiful birth.
Yeah.
And so anytime we met with her, she was great. We met a lot virtually. And then toward the end, she came, and I remember that she did an exercise with us, the one that you're holding the ice in your hands, which I don't know if you do that with your.
I haven't done that one.
And it was really like, that was really helpful to think about how you are going to work through those intense moments and feelings. And it also was like reassuring to me because I was like, oh, that was intense, but like I handled it well. Like I, tapping into what I have as a meditative practice already, practicing those things with her was really, really, really helpful.
Yeah.
She was just great. I mean, she was always just there as a reassuring presence, always reassuring me that like, I'm safe. Even when I did go into labor, she was so calm. It was people that do this all the time have a level of calm that you're like, hello, like you're so calm, which is great. And because I'm like, oh, this is supposed to be happening. I'm supposed to be throwing up. Great. She's just, oh, this is good. And here's trash can, and then like, let's go out and walk. And there was a moment when I was walking and we were in the park and I just like needed to throw up. And she was like, this is normal. And I always get a little uncomfortable when I throw up and like, it's a scary thing for me. And I was like, I don't know if I feel safe. And she was like, you are safe. Just you are safe. And I was like, you're right, I'm safe. And so laboring in the park and her like getting us to like walk up and down the stairs, and I wouldn't have done that. I would have just stayed there laying and having intense contractions if it weren't for her. But it actually really helped to move around and get outside. And yeah.
I'm also envisioning that in your neighborhood, like you got to birth in your neighborhood, in the park, passing the buildings, like, ugh.
Still walk there. We still walk through there. And there was this, we live right next to Morningside Park, and there was this man there with his boombox, and he was just having the best time. And we like went to the steps, and he was there, and he could see that I was in labor. I was laboring, and he was like, I'm going to play a special song for you.
I was just about to ask that.
I don't remember what it is. Someone has it on video, but he played a special song for us as I was having a contraction, and it was just really nice.
Harlem.
I know. It's like sometimes I'm really frustrated with the boom boxes in Harlem, but like that was a beautiful time. I was like, you know what? That was beautiful. So yeah, it was great. And to give birth and like labor in your neighborhood, it's a beautiful thing. Thanks for
Mhm.
reminding me of that, because we still walk through that park, and with Lex on the other side, and it's really cool.
Yeah. Something else that I'm remembering is I think we might have talked about the vision for your birth, like what it looks like.
Yeah.
And I think you mentioned lights and affirmations all around the room from strong women, and of
Yeah.
course, being supported by CK and your doula. And I ended up seeing the photo when you posted your birth, and I was like, wow, that was it. Like that was it. That's what you described.
Yeah, it really was. It really was. I had this deck that I had ordered of affirmations during birth and pregnancy. And so I picked out the ones that I wanted to have, because I went into labor a week early, so I didn't have it ready yet. But
Mhm.
that's where my friends came in. And when I told them that my water broke, they came over right away. And I was like, these are the cards that I picked. And I
Mhm.
want these lights. The lights had just come in the mail. So they had, of course, it's a day-long process, or can be, and so they had put the lights up where I wanted the birthing pool to be, and they put all my affirmations on the wall, and it was really perfect. It was a beautiful. The space was beautiful, and then they just held space for me. Like, they just sat on the sofa outside of the room where I was, having contractions, and they waited until they were needed, and they would bring me things and food and throughout the whole day. And I never felt so supported in my life. It's like,
Mhm.
wow, and I
Wow.
was like crying. I remember just crying from um, just feeling supported. They just showed up, they had all the things, um, and I felt so supported during a really vulnerable time that could have been really scary, but I really just
Yeah.
felt supported.
Yeah. I was almost like holding back tears, like feeling it creeping up
Oh,
because it's like your birth was a ceremony.
it did. Listen, it did feel that way.
Wow.
Wow. Yeah, it did. It really did. It really did. Wow. Yeah, thinking about it like that, having
Mhm.
them come over and be there holding, space for me, and just
Mhm.
being present. And then I had um, some of my other friends who were not, all over the world, who were not able to be there. You can't have everybody there. I had like a texting chain, right? And some of them had come to an in-person um, small baby shower, and they
Mhm.
had gotten candles. And so I said, when I go into labor, just light this candle and say a prayer for me.
Oh, yeah.
And so one of my friends had them was texting. They're like, here's what's happening right now. Continue to pray. Like, here we are. Like, and so I knew that was happening. They were praying for me, and then every now and then, like, someone would read a text from that group that was just like,
Mhm.
super encouraging, and I just
Mhm.
felt like, surrounded by like a host of prayers and friends and angels. And you also sent me, on our Trello board that
Mhm.
we used, you also sent me like imagery of like loving maternal figures like Maya
Mhm.
Angelou and Cicely Tyson,
Mhm.
that really, kind of just during the really intense parts, being able to imagine those women rooting for me,
Mhm.
who've, come before me and given birth before me,
Mhm.
was really, really helpful.
Yeah, beautiful. Thanks for letting me know that. I love putting those together. So, I'm curious as to what it was like working with both Nubia and Jazz, or having them work with you in the midst of the birth.
It was, yeah, it was a great experience. Uh, when doula Jasmine got there,
Mhm. Mhm.
she was the one, making sure that I was like eating. She used the rebozo thing
Mhm.
blanket,
Yeah.
and that was really, really helpful, especially early on. Um, and Nubia was able to just like focus on the birthing process,
Mhm.
getting it out. I mean, everyone at the end was like holding me and up in some way, like rooting for me. And Nubia had her co-midwife Sage come as well, and they worked together really well. So yeah, I think a lot of people get confused with like what a doula is and what a midwife is, and and so, but they do very, very different things. And Nubia was the one who was like telling me how to breathe. She would like be taking me on these meditational journeys, like as I like in between contractions.
Wow.
She would be like, and then she would like just know when a wave was coming, and I would be like, and it would just be that she also was like supporting me in a different way, but like in a more physical way. So and giving me like knowing when I needed like a breather, or when to change positions. I used a stool, I got in the water, I was in the bed at the end. So just being able to just try different ways, that was her like being like, okay, let's do this. Let's lower the stool. Let's get out of the water. Let's, go on all fours. Let's try that, and so, and because of Jasmine, I had remembered that was one of the things that she coached me through before I went into labor. She said she coached me to just be open to suggestions.
Yeah.
I think she expressed it like that's probably one of the hardest things, is when like the birthing mother just like isn't open to trying new positions or breathing things or whatever it is. And so I had that in my mind, like, okay, I'm going to just try everything that they ask me to do. I'm also an actor, so like I'm just trained to try direction. To do directions. I'm like, sure, I will do that, and so I definitely like just tried everything that they had me to do. And so Nubia was the one who was like, okay, let's get on this. Let's do this. Let's try this. CK. And so at the end, she was like, CK, get behind her. And so, and help her push. So that was like what was happening at the end. He was behind me, helping me push in the bed. And so, yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Was,
oh, beautiful.
yeah, it was a really, really, when I think about it again, it was a really beautiful experience.
Yeah. I'm curious, did you prep your friends before they arrived? Like, did they have a sense of what they would be doing? Because it sounds like they showed up ready. Like, let's go.
They did show up ready, but like afterwards they were like, I thought I would just be like taking pictures. Like holding your leg, or or there was a moment where they needed to fill up the tub, and they were like really, the water stopped coming out hot, so they were like boiling hot water, and they were really great sports, because they felt like it was like a I Love Lucy episode. They were just like running into pots of water and like and like making sure that that the water was warm enough and everything, and they were like, we didn't know we'd be doing all that, but they were ready. They did come in so ready, however they needed to be used, but they were like, what do you mean? There's a doula, there's an assistant, there's a midwife. But I think the team was also like, hey, we're all here. Let's all work together and do this and support this baby coming here. And so it's so special to have them here, to have had them there. I would have never thought that I wanted them to be there. One of them was like recording, and the other one was like on the other side of me, just like fanning me. And when he came into the world. So, and then it was great, because then I had things that I had to do, like go to the bathroom and like all the things that happen after you give birth. And we had skin to skin and all of that stuff. But Nubia, she was like, well, since they're here, why don't you take a nap? And then they will hold him, and then you can wake up and after you've had a little bit of rest. So that was great. Yeah. And it's just such a beautiful thing that like those two women got to be with him, because CK was out after he was so into it until like the baby was here. And then like an hour or two later, he was just like, he was out, which more power to him.
Yeah.
But like they were there, they were holding the baby for, you know, a couple hours while we got to sleep. And so it's a beautiful thing to have had them there, like holding him and making sure he's okay. And yeah.
Yeah, birthing in your community with your people.
Literally,
Yeah.
right? So
Wow, amazing.
yeah.
What was it like giving birth in a tub? And I just want to say this for people who are listening and don't know, you can rent a tub.
Yes.
So you don't own a tub
I
that
didn't
you
know we
birthed
didn't
in,
own one. Well, I didn't actually give birth in it. I just labored for a while in it. It was really relaxing, and I think I couldn't feel the contractions that much anymore, which is why I kind of like had to get out because we had to move it along. But yeah, it was, I got it. I needed that moment though to kind of like relax. And so getting into it, and I was like, oh, okay. But I just wasn't feeling the contractions as much, which was good. But then I also like, you kind of need to feel the contractions to push. And one thing for me is that I don't, you know, they describe pushing as like having a bowel movement. And so I don't really push when I have a bowel movement, which is something that I guess is unique to me. So I had trouble pushing. And so I needed to actually feel the contractions to be able to push. So that's kind of why I had to get out, because I pushed for a long time because I wasn't pushing as well as I could have been, I think. Or just like, it wasn't my forte, the pushing part. I was just like, where do I push? I couldn't really like localize where to push. So, but Nubia was great with that because, you know, she would like put coconut oil like right where I needed to push and like show me put her hands there where I needed to push. And that actually really helped once we figured out that like, this was a problem. They'd be like, bear down like you're having a bowel movement. And I'm like, I don't really do that. Like, I kind of, like, I don't know if it's a vegan thing, but I kind of just flow with it.
Yeah.
So they were like, oh, this is what's happening. And so they actually helped me, you know, figure out where to like bear down and push and breathe and breathe into.
Nice.
Yeah.
Amazing. Cool. So Lex made his way into the world. What's that been like? Or even before we get to that, what was postpartum like for you?
Yeah, I think physically it was a little surprising. I did have a little abrasion, so just having to get stitched up with that was you know, I mean, I'm glad that I didn't have to go anywhere to do that. Nubia just did it. And but yeah, I think physically I was like surprised at the recovery in that department, because I felt like it took a long time, but I guess that's how it is. But emotionally, I was fine. I think there was maybe 1 week where I was like, I think I was struggling with breastfeeding. So that first week I had like mastitis. Is that what it's called? I'm not thinking of the word right now, but I had a fever like one day and I was like a little emotional. And so there was one day where I was just like, you know, but for the most part, I was okay. Like I made sure that I was not doing too much. We had family come and help. You know, my mom was there right away. She was allowed after after the birth. So she like, you know, flew in that morning. And so it was great to just have someone there and not feel like I had to jump right back into or jump immediately into like being all, you know, up all the time with him. And yeah, I think things were okay after that little breastfeeding stuff. I think the breastfeeding was a little bit of a challenge at first, and I had some like hard things about like, you know, formula and, you know, supplementing with that for a while. And I ended up fine after like 2 weeks, and I'm still breastfeeding today. And so that all went fine, but that was also like kind of difficult, just to kind of like figure out what that is. And but I didn't really have any severe anxiety or depression. I was mostly like feeling very supported, asking for help. My friends never left. They were there, they were still there, helping, and helping my mom. She's not like a New Yorker, so helping in the way that she needed. And so it was great to still feel supported. I think that was key for me. And even now, that's the thing, like delegating and asking for help is the key to not feeling like you're losing it as a new mom. And I think anytime I'm feeling very overwhelmed, like when my husband went back to work, it's really because I'm not feeling supported or asking for support or arranging the support. So and also like sleep is a huge thing for me. And as you know, with newborns, you really don't get much of it. But I feel like when I prioritize that, which means for me, like I go to sleep still shortly after he goes to bed. Like I go to bed shortly after he goes to bed. I don't care if there's dishes in the sink. I don't care if it's a mess. I go to bed because I know that I'll have to wake up. And so if that's a 12-hour night, I'm at least getting some sleep somewhere in that 12-hour night. I know it sounds like crazy, but that's what has worked for us, as like, that's how I stay sane, is making sure that I prioritize getting in the bed shortly after he does. Still.
Awesome. So having you share your birth story, I'm remembering something that I hold from my doula training, like how will the birthing person remember their experience, right? How will this person remember it? And that bit is really important to me because a part of my work is the emotional healing, right? So I work with people who've either had some kind of trauma or some difficult emotional experience that they're still unpacking or releasing. And sometimes that experience comes after childbirth, right? So there are regrets that they have, or there are ways that they were treated so that they feel not prioritized, right? They feel overlooked. And just thinking of your experience, it was so different. Like you were at the center and you were supported and you were held. And it was such a loving space for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so true. I think when I think back to it, I really do remember, I mean, there were lots of hard moments during pregnancy, and I didn't really enjoy being pregnant that much. But the birthing experience was like the most beautiful experience. I don't know if it's of my life, but it's up there. So I am also glad that I had the initial experience of being in the hospital and knowing how women are treated who are low income and who are of color and who, just don't have as much of a voice. And thinking about the people who I saw in those wait rooms that didn't get a chance to change their circumstance, it makes me like want to do more to contribute to that. And I don't know what that looks like, or if it's now, or if it's later, or if it comes out in my writing or whatever, but it's on my mind. And yeah, I'm glad that I got to see that in experience. And I feel like there is a purpose for that, because it's unacceptable. So many parts of it were unacceptable. And a lot of us just accept it because we don't know that we have other options.
Yeah, so well said. Yeah, so I'm curious as to how your experience of giving birth in that supportive space, or just being a mother in general, like how has that changed your work?
Yeah, it's so funny. I was writing this musical about friendship, and it's like about being a mom now. It's like about being it's a lot about motherhood now. It was
Mm.
always about women and friendships, and now I feel like it's kind of morphed into like motherhood and what that means and looks
Mhm.
like for people. And um so it's interesting. And I was like kind of fighting it at first. I was like, am I going to really write this song with this? And I'm like, yeah, that's what we're doing. This is what we're doing. We're following what we're supposed to be doing, and if
Mhm.
it's in you, that's in you now. So um yeah, it's really been, it's really changed the way that I guess tell stories. It's changed what I want to focus on. Um, the new ideas that I have, even beyond the piece that I'm working on,
Mhm.
is they all have to do with like being at this stage in my life. So it's cool. And then I'm getting to meet and understand better the other creative moms, you know, in my community. And
Mhm.
this past week, you know, has just been so great. Like I was really
Mhm.
feeling last week that I was like, man, I'm missing something. Like I feel really like a little bit of lonely. Is this loneliness? And I had two brunches with, you know, moms who are doing some kind of creative work, and it just really filled
Mhm.
me up. It really
Mhm.
inspired me to see what's possible as a mom and in this industry, as a creative person, songwriter, or whatever. And
Mhm.
so I'm feeling like a new drive and like just like a pride to be able to still create, you know. And there are people, you know, there are people who can't create, and they aren't in this position. And so it actually gives me a little bit of like extra like pride, like, yeah, like I have a new baby and I'm still like, I've made so much headway on my musical. And the other thing that we were working on is a children's musical. And I see, I kind of like, you know, how you watch children's programming sometimes and you look at it and you're like, this is for the parents. There are parts of my
Yeah.
musical that are like, this is for you moms, you know, like I didn't realize that I was doing that, but that's definitely what that is. So yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah. So, birthing in community is basically the theme of this conversation.
Yeah.
Um, what's surprising to you about that, or what did you not expect about birthing in community, birthing with support around you?
Yeah, I didn't expect to need it.
Mm.
I always have been very independent, never really focusing on, like I said, asking for help. Um, I've always just like taken the initiative to do things on my own. And like the superwoman thing, you know, just like I can do all the things. I'm superwoman.
Mhm.
I've got it all together, and that's amazing, and that's true because, like, you know, I was able to tap into the strength to bring him here.
Yeah.
Also, like that experience was 10 times better because of the people that supported me.
Yeah.
And that's what life is, you know, like that's what I'm learning is that yes, I can write all the musicals on my own and perform on my own or whatever, but how much better can it be if I just invite people in to
Mm.
collaborate on this with me? So
Yeah.
that's like that's my lesson from from childbirth. It's like, let people help you because it will only make the experience better.
Yeah. So yummy. So yummy.
I'm still working on it, you know. It's like every day I'm like, oh yeah, people helping. And you know.
Is there any advice that you'd offer to expectant families? Anyone who's like not satisfied with their care is kind of blasé. Any words that you'd offer?
I would say ask questions, ask for what you need, and
Mm.
keep asking, and why, and why, and why. And you might find that the answer is like totally arbitrary, and the answer is something that made sense like 100 years ago that no longer makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And that is going to guide you,
Yeah.
like, and I get that from another artist, Michaela Cole. You might be familiar. She wrote and I May Destroy You and Chewing Gum. When she in her contracts, she was like, so why can't I have 10% of my things? So explain why this is like this. Because nobody else has done it before and nobody else has asked this question. That's not a good reason to not have the care that I need. Why can't I have a referral for physical therapy? Because you haven't seen me. I haven't seen the same person every time I've come into the office. So please explain to me why. And so that's, I would say ask questions, get down to the bottom of it. If something doesn't feel right for you, you don't have to do it most of the time either. Because I think in the hospital, one of the other things that bothered me was a lot of the testing that they want to do. I just didn't feel comfortable with it. It was just like getting a little out of hand. And I just kept being like, why? Oh, it's not even a big deal. Well, why are we, why are we doing this? So, and that might be important to other people, but like for me, I was like, nope, I'm done with that. I've made an informed decision to not do this anymore.
Yes.
I don't know if you told me to use those words or where I got that from, but and yeah, so asking why and really connecting with your values and what your decision is.
Yeah, wonderful. Yeah, I would love for us to send some love to Nubia. So I'm going to actually get her website and all of that information and share it at the end of this recording so that people know where they can find her.
Yes.
Yeah. And in the meantime, I would love for you to share your info so people know where they can find you.
Yes. I am on Instagram at Tia DeShazor, and my website is tiadeshazor.com. And that's where you can find me.
Awesome. And before we end here, because you do one-to-one coaching with creatives. So tell us more about that in case there's anyone interested who wants to hit you up for coaching.
I do. Yes. I coach artists on how to, work with ease, to hack their creative flow, to figure out what their brand is, and actually how to make more money from their art and not be a starving artist.
Awesome.
So that's what I do. I have a lot of clients this year who have already leveled up this year and are making more money and having their full-time artist month. And yeah, it's really exciting to see how that kind of happened as I'm, postpartum still and figuring out how to run my own business in the midst of all of the other things we're doing, because I'm also auditioning with Lexington, and we booked our first job together next week at shoots. So that's also fun. Yeah.
Congrats. Amazing.
And I'm doing an episode of Law and Order while I'm talking about myself. There's an episode of Law and Order coming out that I'm on as a uniformed cop next month in March. So you can catch me all over the place.
We'll look out for that. So. What's Lex like? What's his personality so far?
He is a Taurus. He's the most Taurus that ever Taurus. He is so thorough and persistent. And he's also very funny and loving. He loves to hug and kiss like everyone, which is like, he's a pandemic baby, but he loves people. He has FOMO. If someone's there, he won't go take a nap. If he knows that someone's there, he loves people. And he's a silly guy. He loves to laugh. If we're all laughing, he'll do a fake laugh to laugh with us. And so he's just an all-around fun guy. He's a delight. Like every week it's something new that he can do. He just learned to clap and say yay. So, yeah, it's great. And it's great just watching him with others and the other people that love him. CK, it's just a delight. He's so amazing.
Yeah. Well, I am sending love to you, to CK, to him, and just blessings all around.
We received that. Thank you.
So thank you for sitting with me, for sharing your birth story. And we'll make sure that we keep following you on Instagram to see what's the latest, to see what else you and Lex might book. All right. Thank you, Tia. Thank you all for tuning in. This has been another episode of the Preparing for Pregnancy After Loss podcast. And you know where to find me on Instagram at The Birth Warriors, on my website at nataliefacey.com. All right, y'all. We'll see you in the next episode.